So I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today. I have something kind of scary going on in my personal life right now. There is a huge fire only about 20 to 25 miles away from my home. It has continued to grow and has not been contained at all at the moment. At the time I'm recording this, there has been over 96,000 acres of land that has been burned. There are 700 to 900 firefighters in this area fighting this fire, which I am eternally grateful for their efforts. I pray they will stay safe up there. At the time I'm recording this, this is considered the largest fire in the United States. We are safe in town still, but at the moment we are preparing for potential evacuation. So needless to say, I've had a few things on my mind and I'm not quite in the right headspace to create a new painting and a new tutorial this week. But don't worry, I do have a tutorial I'm going to share with you today that I do think you're going to enjoy. This is actually a painting I did over 3 years ago. So unless you've been with me a long time, you probably have not seen this one yet. This is the easiest way I know how to draw and paint snowdrop flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and play that video for you, but beware, this was 3 years ago, so the footage may be a little choppy. I probably don't teach things quite like I do now, but I will try to keep you updated on my potential evacuation situation. In the meantime, it would just really help a lot if you would keep these amazing firefighters in your prayers. No matter what happens, I am so grateful for them. They are risking their lives and taking time away from their families to come and save our little community, and that does not go unnoticed. At the end of this video, I will be posting a little bit of footage of the fire that I can see from my house if you'd like to take a peek. But for now, let's go ahead and paint some watercolor snowdrops. Really quickly, let's go over the supplies needed for today's painting. First, I have watercolor paper cut to the size 8 by 10. I will be taping this painting down today, so I also have some artist tape. I have water, a paper towel, and some masking fluid. Now this is a crucial tool for today's snowdrop painting. If you need some of this, I have a link for it in the description of this video. For paintbrushes today, I have here a brush just for the masking fluid. This is an older brush that I really don't use for painting anymore, so it's perfect to use just in case I can't get some of the masking fluid out when I'm cleaning it. I also have a number 10 round brush for the background washes, and a number 2 round brush for some of the detail work. I also have a pencil to sketch in some of the snowdrops, and of course, watercolor paints. I will let you know the exact colors I'm using as I go. If you need more details or information on any of these supplies, you can find it by clicking on the description of this video. All right, I'm going to start out by showing you how to draw some really simple snowdrops. I have 3 ways that I've used, and I just drew them over and over again, and they really aren't that hard. So first, we'll start with a simple small circle for the top of the snowdrop. Then we'll draw one petal shape stemming out from that circle. Next, we'll draw a second petal right next to the first that is about the same size and shape. And lastly, we'll draw just the tip of the third petal back behind the other 2. This flower looks like it's just starting to open, so now let's draw one that flares out just a little bit more. Start with a circle, again for the top, and then we'll draw the first petal stemming out from it just like we did before. Now draw the second petal also as we did before on the side of the first petal. It's the third petal that's going to make the big difference. It will be drawn on the opposite side rather than in between the first 2 petals. Now for this last flower, we're going to draw more of a bud. Again, starting out the same way with the small circle on top, the first petal stemming out from it, and then you can choose to leave it with just one petal, like a bud that hasn't opened yet, or you can add a second one that is drawn in very closely to the first. Now all that's left to do is add some droopy stems that come out from the top circle, moving up and then down. Then if you want, you can erase any lines that are not needed anymore, or you can even add in some little grassy pieces where the flower has bloomed from at some of the tops of the stems. But really, that's all there is to draw these little flowers. It's really pretty easy, and once you've got it down, you can add as many or as few as you want to your watercolor paper. And if you'd rather not draw these at all, then you can of course jump over to my Etsy shop and get the outline that I'm using today and simply trace it onto your watercolor paper and jump right to the fun of painting. The very first thing we're going to do is take our old brush and paint on the masking fluid. Now, a trick I've learned is to add a little bit of liquid dish soap into the brush bristles before you start applying the masking fluid. Then, when you're ready to clean out your brush, it helps get that masking fluid out of your brush instead of gumming up the bristles. Now just start covering all of the flower heads and stems with the masking fluid. You'll also notice that with my drawing that most of the stems for the flowers don't actually go all the way to the bottom of the page. I've actually stopped drawing them after they get down to another flower. But of course that's up to you and how you like your drawing to be. My brush must have had some paint left in it previously or something, because these first few flowers are turning out to be a little dirty looking, but that's okay. That color will come off along with the masking fluid later. If you're finding my painting tips helpful today, I hope you'll consider subscribing so you can learn more great tips every week with my Thursday tutorials. All right, let's go ahead and start painting the background to this. Make sure your masking fluid is dry before you start, but we're just going to add some water around and in between the flowers first, and I'm not quite putting water clear to the edges. I'm really just getting right around the flowers. Now that the water's on there, I'll take some sap green and start spreading that all around. I'm trying to make the center slightly darker and let it fade out lighter on the edges. I'm noticing that I'm getting quite a bit of water pooling over on this right side, so I'm going to take my paper towel and dab some of that off. Now let's make a darker green by mixing sap green with a touch of Payne's gray. Then we'll use that color to paint in some grasses into the background. Now I'm doing this while the painting is still wet, so the grasses I'm putting in right now will become fuzzy and look like they're a little farther away. Really quick, I'm also going to take just a bit of Gamboge and add that here and there to the wet background to give some variety of color. If you want to, just for some fun and variety, you can even add a few splatters of green while it's still wet. Now I've darkened up the sap green a little more with just a bit more Payne's gray, and I'll add in some more grasses. You'll notice that this time I'm going to paint some of the grass with the tips stretching out onto part of the page that is dry, making the tops look crisp and keeping the bottom half more blurry. For this next part, I've let the painting dry completely, and then I'll add in even more of the grasses. Because it's dry now, the grasses stand out more, they look more crisp, and this makes them appear to be more in the foreground. At this point, I have lots of little layers of grasses, which create some dimension. The bottoms of these grasses I've just painted end in a pretty hard edge, so I'm just going to take my small brush and some water and soften those lines just a little bit. Now this next step is optional, but I really like the effect it creates. I'm just going to take some of this dark green and paint in some of the negative spaces in between the grasses. This just adds some nice dark spaces and contrast that can really make the painting pop. I'm mostly painting these negative spaces at the middle and bottom areas of the painting. You know, something I really like about painting with you is that we might be painting the same object, landscape, or flower, but all of our paintings will look different than one another's because our own unique style and personality goes into our work. I just think it's neat. Really quick, I want to point out I did go get some new clean water before this next step. Now, after the background is completely dry, then it's time to take off all of the masking fluid. A lot of the times I'll use an eraser to help remove it, but in this case, I don't want my pencil marks on the flowers to be erased. So I'm just rubbing and peeling it off with my fingers today. I just love that part. It's like a little bit of magic. Okay, now for the fun part, it's time to finish this painting off by painting the snowdrops. I'm going to start by mixing a nice blue-green color for the stems of the flowers. So I'll take some sap green and mix in a little ultramarine blue. Now, I do want this color to be fairly light in value because I do want the stems to still stand out from the background. So add in some extra water and test your color on some scrap paper to make sure it's good before you start painting. I'll start out by painting the top circle of the stem, but I am going to leave a small highlight that is unpainted. But then on the other side of that circle, I'll try to make it a little darker for a shadow area. Then I'll paint the rest of the stem a nice light blue-green. Then just paint all of the rest of the stems that same way. Now here's a bit of a closer look so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I really like the subtle contrast of warm and cool colors going on in this painting. The background is a very warm green, yellow-green, and now the flowers themselves are adding more of a cool element because of the blue that's coming into play. Now for the finishing touch to this painting, we're going to add some shadows onto the flower petals using some ultramarine blue. Now I actually think the blue is slightly brighter than I'd like, so I'm going to use just a touch of Payne's gray to mellow that color down a bit. Then I'll take this small brush and start adding small sections of this blue-gray anywhere that I think there might be a bit of a shadow. I'm also using it to help separate and form the individual petals. Now, be careful though, not to use too much of this blue. Use it sparingly because we do want the white color to be the most prominent, so they still look like white flowers when we're done. Here's a closer look at how I'm painting the shadows on these flowers. All right, I think that's actually it for this painting today. It turned out fantastic. I really love this one, and I believe it's easy enough for anyone to try. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you had some fun and maybe even learned something new. So make sure you subscribe. But before I'm totally done with this video, I do have a little bit of footage from that fire just from my own backyard if you'd like to see what we're dealing with over here. There's the fire up there. The smoke is totally filling the air. It's a little bit daunting. There's ash falling from the sky. Kind of scary. Here we are again. The plumes are very big. It smells very, very smoky right now. What's worrying me is that we are experiencing some thunder and lightning and yet no rain. And this is how this fire got started. So we're crossing our fingers.